This is the Perfect Being. I'm here to tell you all to subscribe to the perfect channel, UnrealEntGaming. Please remember to turn on your notifications to be the first to know about the latest in Dragon Ball news and information. And if you don't, very soon you will all be dead, along with your entire planet.
After many months of build-up and weeks of anticipation, the clock finally strikes zero as the long-awaited Tournament of Power begins, with the mightiest warriors across the multiverse gathered together and are ready to engage in a battle of survival. What's going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome to my Dragon Ball Super episode 97 review entitled Survive. The Tournament of Power begins at last, leading into next week's exciting episode of Dragon Ball Super episode 98. Finally, we begin with the mightiest tournament after having to wait so long. The clock finally strikes zero, and the ultimate battle that we've all been looking forward to for such a long time finally begins, in which showcases Universe number 7 in a very desperate situation after having to see what happened in this particular episode with the separation of members including Goku, Vegeta, and even Frieza. Team Universe number 7 is going to have a very difficult time in having to work together, especially after having to witness the actions we saw in this particular episode. But a quick plug before we begin: if you guys are new to this channel, be sure to go on ahead and punch that subscribe button for more news, information, updates, and of course discussions alongside gameplay reviews for all forms of Dragon Ball content. And make sure to also go on ahead and punch that bell icon, that way you guys are always notified whenever a Dragon Ball video is posted onto this channel, as I will be covering various Dragon Ball topics throughout the coming weeks. And of course, if you guys are not following me at Twitter, be sure to go on ahead and head over to Twitter and follow me at UnrealEntGaming to be up to date with all that is in Dragon Ball news, information, and updates. And I thank you guys for your overwhelming support on the channel, as it does go a long way. So if you guys are new, be sure to go on ahead, turn on notifications, hashtag notification squad, to be up to date with all that is in Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Super episode 97 is now officially in the history books. And finally, guys, the bell rings as the Tournament of Power is just about to begin, but not before there is a bit of drama, in which we see play off with Universe number 7 as the episode kicks off exactly where we left off, with all the fighters taking center stage and the Daishinkan having to emerge from the center of the clock pole. And that's when he begins to announce the rules. Now, the actual match goes as follows. It's actually 100 tacks, which is 48 minutes, in which he also states that the centerpiece pole that's in the middle of the tournament ring is going to act as a clock. And he says that weapons are forbidden, as is flying. So you can't fly and you can't use weapons unless you have wings, of course, to fly, and you lose by obviously being ringed out. So it looks like everyone is prepared, and even Gohan says that they need teamwork, and Vegeta and Frieza seem to be a little uninterested with working alongside everybody, because Frieza has his own agenda, and also Kale is very scared because everyone looks so strong, and the way she approaches, Khalifa and Kaba, she's sweaty, she's holding onto her arm, and Khalifa's trying to reassure her that everything is going to be okay, so as long as they follow by the rules. But then we get to see Frieza with the trio of dangers, and Frieza seems to have such a devious look on his face. His eyes are glowing red. He cannot be trusted. And right before the Daishinkan rings the bell, as the sun, or the little object in the sky that emits light, is moving, we see how everyone is beginning to get tense. Fighters are preparing, and what I loved about this is you get to see the literal calm before the storm, as Beerus is even shouting at his team to go on ahead and utilize teamwork. And finally, we get some interaction between Katella and Beerus, because Katella finds this very amusing that Beerus is barking orders. He's screaming at his team, because no other god of destruction is literally acting the way Beerus is acting toward his team, because obviously enough, Beerus is very worried, as is everyone else. And then at long last, the moment of truth, Daishinkan raises his hand, and then right as he pretty much says go, everyone begins to brawl. Now, Toei Animation didn't really give us any additional information as to the character names and the bios and stuff, but in the distance there are massive explosions all throughout the ring. Literally, once this thing started, there were explosions everywhere. The Omni King he looked like he had like some sort of like mind orgasm, and the only team that hasn't been, drawn into the explosion fight was Team Universe number 7. They actually look like they're, right by the actual clock center, because we get to see some of, Universe number 3's fighters collide. We see Topo head on, and Goku notices Topo, and Goku rushes right for Topo, and as he does that, one of Kitella's fighters, the actual spy that realized, that they had Frieza coming along the team, jumps in, and Goku beats him up. So 17 begins to separate, 18 separates, Vegeta leaves, Goku leaves, and then finally we see Frieza casually walking. And I don't know if it's just me, but he had like a little Chucky, like little walk there going on. So he walked on forward, he's starting to blast everything, and poor Gohan is saying to himself, like, what is going on? Why are you all leaving? And Beerus pretty much face palms and saying, we're doomed. And what I loved about this is, I'll be honest, Moscow's fighters are really sufficient in this tournament, and the idea that one of them was actually trying to use his body in the form of like a tornado, so he's going around, he's spinning around, people are getting knocked, and the girls, Helice's fighters, Jerez, the female god of destruction, she sees that this robot just tanked all 3 of them. So I'll be honest, like this was surreal, even to the point where the robot was, knocking over Kaba, he knocked over Dispo, the Pride Trooper, and we see how one of the Kaioshins, the smart one from Moscow's universe, he kind of like lifts up his glasses and he's kind of proud on this, because as I told you guys before, Moscow's fighters are specifically programmed for this fight, and Moscow commands his fighters to spin, and one of them actually targeted Hit, and Hit moved so good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I mean, furniture was flying all throughout the Unreal household, because there was a certain point in time where one of the fighters actually threw his hands, and Hit and Lavender actually caught him midway, and Nigirishi is actually wondering as to what's going on, because that's one of his teammates, so he can't afford to have him be ringed out, and Moscow's commanding his fighters to just really go all in, and the idea that, I mean, they can't really afford for any one of their teammates to legitimately get knocked out, because it looks like Moscow's fighters are fighting in a very synchronized order, and even then Moscow's commanding his fighters to spin and knock everyone out the ring, and then we see like this butterfly-like chick, and she's shooting these beams at Basil, and Basil is dodging them, and finally he starts launching attacks, and again, we don't know any additional information, but she was actually one of the first ones to get ringed out, in which we see Ramush as well. He was just like, he was shocked, he was like, what's going on? So she plummets into the darkness, and we get to see this little beam just go all the way down, as they needed to make an example of the fighters here, and in which case we see how all of a sudden, once she actually falls into the void, she goes into the spectating seat. So it looks like once you get thrown out of the ring, you do not get erased, but instead you end up at the bleachers. So it looks like instead of getting, killed or erased, that does not happen to you. In fact, you actually end up on the bleacher side with your respective god and Kaioshin. So even with that being said, you don't automatically lose, you actually go back to your respective god. And even the Omni King is like looking at like this little chart, and he's looking at all the fighters, and which ultimately gives the Omni King an idea as to which fighter is thrown out of the Tournament of Power. And then as we go back to the spectator seats, we see how the god of destruction is beginning to chew this girl out. Obviously enough, we already knew that a bunch of fighters were going to be fodder in this tournament. I mean, people weren't really expecting for loads of fighters to be equally as strong as Goku or Hit, but Ramush was really just chewing her out, dude. He had veins on his head. The only two that weren't really doing anything was Gowasu. I mean, Gowasu was disappointed, and even the Angel was just, casually smiling, and Ramush, he was just going off, and she was actually egging on her team on doing better and better. And then, I'm not gonna lie, this episode primarily focused, I think, a little bit on, the fodder universes, perhaps universe number 9, universe number 10, and Basil is fighting this giant pink sumo wrestler, and Basil's holding his own. I mean, I'll be honest, I like Basil, because this giant sumo dude was throwing shots, and Basil was countering everything with his kicks left and right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I had to compare universe 9 to universe number 10, I'm gonna have to go with universe number 9 on this one. But even as Beerus is egging on his team, we see how Chomp is beginning to throw a few comments here and there. Then we see one of the female Pride Troopers fight 18. Vegeta is fighting like this blue obelisk like tormentor type person. We see Frieza shoot off Nigirishi, and Goku's trying to focus in on one of Kitella's fighters. So the gods that aren't really competing here are just sitting back and enjoying this. And Roshi notices that there are like a bunch of dudes all up in his area. We see Lavender, we see, even Botamo's there, and they're circling our fighters. And Gohan is center stage. He's trying to focus in and telling everyone, get each other's backs. Do not, separate. So Botamo, Lavender, and 3 other fighters are slowly approaching them as they have like this 5-man team. And just as they were getting closer, we see Gohan on the offensive. Roshi even used the Kamehameha. Everyone was pretty much holding it down, and if you pay attention, it looks like they were actually one of the only teams that were legitimately trying to, you know, work as a cohesive unit, where as opposed to Botama, Lavender, it was a very unusual pairing, because these are fighters from different universes that have no connection to each other, and Ro is screaming. What I loved about this episode is how the gods are finally acting as if, like, you know, they're like the trainers and the coaches and stuff. Like they're screaming and they're yelling, and you know, we see Basil pretty much launch his energy kicks at the sumo wrestler, and this sumo wrestler is actually holding his own blood. You have to give credit to Basil, because as Basil was launching these attacks, he launched 3 solid attacks in which nearly pushed the sumo wrestler off, and Basil is just having himself a good ass time, and this one sumo dude is holding all 3 blasts back as he deflects them in the sky. So, you know, in terms of like energy stance, this pig, like, you know, sumo wrestler actually was able to, you know, throw back Basil's energy attacks, which pretty much, you know, allowed him to survive instead of getting ringed out. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, even while watching this, I had goosebumps, because I mean, there was literal action all over the place. And we see finally 17, who seems like he's having a great time. Vegeta's fighting his guy off, and Goku's focused more on the little spy dude that's from Kitella's universe. And then low-key, we see how Topo is just firing off shots, and Goku's like staring right at him, and he begins to call out for Topo. So what's interesting about this is as Goku got Topo's attention, you know, someone else begins to attack Topo, and Goku is eyeing Jiren. And this was a moment to where I loved a lot, because Jiren actually got hit by a blast. And then out of nowhere, as Jiren got hit by the blast, the Omni Kings can tell that Jiren is strong, because Jiren took the blast and nothing happened to him. And just as we see another fighter approach Jiren, we see how this fighter steps up to Jiren, and then suddenly he just backs off. I mean, even the Omni Kings, guys, even the Omni Kings knew what Jiren was all about. And Goku took one step, literally he just moved his foot in Jiren's direction, and Jiren is just locking eyes on him. He is not letting go of Goku. And then out of nowhere, just as Goku's about to collide with Jiren, this big ass green dude just grabs Goku by the neck in some sort of like a signature chokehold. I swear to God, I felt as if, you know, we had like 2 megastars going at it, and then all of a sudden this dude grabs Goku and says nope, and in which case they're building up to this. But Goku gets grabbed, and Goku's kind of like, you know, struggling at first because he doesn't know what the hell happened, and Goku is distracted at looking at Jiren. But you have to give credit to Jiren, because there's something about him that even the Omni Kings recognize, because as the Omni Kings pointed the finger, they said, look, 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 he is strong. So even as Goku's getting choked out, he begins to like try to like break through. He's punching this ogre-like dude in the face. It was, I'll have to say, finally, this is paying off. Like, finally, you know, we're getting some clarity and some, you know, awesome action in seeing every fighter, you know, have their moment. And in which case, we see how this one dude is trying to sacrifice himself and throwing Goku out of the ring by grabbing him in this, like, bear hug chokehold and then throwing himself out, getting Goku out as well. And Beerus is freaking out because Goku's like, what? You're trying to take me with you? In which signified, you know, the preview from last week in which Goku was like, dude, this is really happening right now? And this guy is getting ever so closer by the edge of the ring, and Goku's being picked up in the sky, so it's like, what the hell's going on? That was a moment to where it created a desperate situation for our fighters, because nobody understood as to what was going to happen after. But then Goku uses Super Saiyan Blue, breaks out, the dude falls on down. Beerus is like, what the hell? Champa's surprised, the Omni Kings are like, whoa. And that's when we near the end of the episode, in which Goku was hanging on by the edge of the ring using Super Saiyan Blue. He came back up, and then finally we see the green ogre appear before Kitella, and Kitella kicks him in the head repeatedly, and I love that so much. He kept kicking him. He was like, what the hell's wrong with you? But either way, this episode sets up for one of the biggest showdowns to happen, as Beerus is yelling at Goku for not just going blue right away, because Beerus wants Goku to go Super Saiyan Blue right off the bat, and, you know, Goku's not having it. He came back up, he powered down, and even Bergamo and the brotherly trio, we see them laughing in the shadows and stuff, so they're obviously going to be targeting Goku next, and Goku's beginning to get surrounded, as we do know based on the episode preview that Goku is going to be fighting multiple people at once, and we see the brotherly trio, we see other fighters also there, and Goku even tells them, you know what, bring it, I'm not afraid. And this one stupid bunny-like character is behind them, in which I felt as if like there was no need to even have him there in the first place, but the Omni Kings are surely enjoying this, in which by the end of it sets up Goku having to stare everyone down, and then the episode ends, in which gave us a cool little like, you know, ending to the Tournament of Power, as we actually have a brand new outro, which I thought was very, very awesome to begin with. But I would like to know what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. What are your overall thoughts on what we saw in the Tournament of Power thus far? What are your overall expectations for Jiren the Grey? What are your overall expectations for Son Goku, especially after having to look at the latest poster that dropped depicting Goku having to tap into his brand new form? What could this possibly be? Who do you guys think is going to be the one to finally push Goku over the edge in tapping into this new power? And what are your overall thoughts on Team Universe number 7 and having to be targeted and having Gohan be the only person here who seems to be using his brain in trying to hold the team together? Thank you guys for watching. As always, if you guys are new to this channel, be sure to go on ahead and turn on notifications. That way you guys are always updated whenever I post a video on this channel, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for all latest in Dragon Ball news, information, and updates. If you guys enjoyed the review, punch that like button, leave your thoughts down below, tune back in for more. Again, this episode was the setup for much more to come, as you guys already saw, especially based on the episode preview. Everything's about to go down, all hell's breaking loose, as finally there are no restrictions. I mean, I do think that eventually the rules are going to be changed, but having to look at what happened in this particular episode and even the preview, this gives me high hopes for many other things to come. So thank you guys for watching. As always, tune back in for the breakdown review, and I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Take it easy, guys. Peace.